A video. Oh, hello. I am Kenny. So, and this is my friend Nicola, and I want to make a video. Want to make a video about Robert Greene because I recommend to everyone who feels sorry for themselves, like I do, to get the books by Robert Greene, because once you get the books by Robert Greene, you will learn, and it is very simple. He will just point you back to the very simplistic reality that has been there all along, the simplistic facts of living, and of communicating with other people. And I'm learning so much about myself. It's incredible. It's like I kind of knew before that this was the case, but since I didn't feel very, I feel kind of shy, and I don't feel like I am much of a mover and shaker. I'm an ant of activism, basically. So that's why I did not really think that what I already assumed was true. So, but then listening to the audio book by Robert Greene, I'm going to get every one of his books, also the e-books. I'm going to get them because this is your money well spent, I tell you that. So get all of his e-books, read them, and get his audio books, and go to bed at night with listening to those. So that's all I can say to every single person, and particularly those people who feel shy and they feel like they're not a big shot, or they're not good at things, or so for those people I really recommend you listening to his books, and let that really permeate your whole mind and bodies, and get into your cells and engulf you, and let that remind your brain cells that you are good, great, amazing, unique, capable, you have potential, and all you need to do is you need to wake that up, that potential, and you need to feel safe. You need to make yourself feel safe if no one else can do that. Unfortunately, we live in a very unstable, very insecure world, surrounded by insecure and a lot of aggressive people, aggressive religions that are threatening to expand and take over politics. It's not fun, It's not fun looking into the future, thinking about the consequences of certain movement, where they're gonna go, how much they're gonna expand, what they're gonna do to us, who will be in charge of the governments, when greed definitely is ruling, but then greed uses religion as vehicles, as it has always done that. It's a method of controlling the masses. And that's why I recommend to people to listen to Robert Greene, because that is the very material that the corporate agenda has empowered itself and uses it for the wrong reasons. So if you are a kind-hearted and caring person, and some people believe that everyone has a kind-hearted and caring sapling inside of the tree trunk, like the soul core of every person. I don't know if that's true or not, but I studied psychology. I read some clinical psychology studies, and they are certainly in the beginning of all of this. They are far from getting to that discovery of who we really are at the core. A lot of them are stuck on the surface and make conclusions of that it is genetic, it is hardwired, we are either caring or we're not. I would be very depressed to have to accept that. It would be much more hopeful to go with the Buddhists and Teal Swan and Eckhart Tolle and numerous other people who do believe that each person has that pure, kind inner child who wants kindness in the world. So I want to believe that, I really, 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 really want to believe that. And I want all of you to believe that. And I want every unkind person to believe that they have a pure, kind soul inside and a good-hearted child. And when you listen to Robert Greene's books, they are witty, and a lot of people misunderstood that as some kind of like how to train a psychopath or something, and I can understand how some people are afraid that the psychopath will use this information for the wrong purposes. But they already are. So, whether Robert Greene writes this again in books or not, the CEO psychopath type of people, who are using this for the wrong purposes, they have already had this information for a long time, and I'm sure that they have already, I'm sure they must have probably some kind of corporate like a corporate commandment book or something that every one of them has been studying, and they give that information out among each other. I don't know. There are other books out there, Napoleon Hill, for example, and also Tony Robbins touching on those subjects. But Robert Greene really makes it understood from a completely psychological perspective what empowerment really is, and and also, like, maybe not coming from the Buddhist perspective directly. He keeps it very neutral. He's neither presents it in a Buddhist perspective, kind-hearted perspective, nor the CEO perspective. It's just wrapped in the package of a little bit like, kind of like Renaissance style stories, anecdotes, and little bit of a sarcastic undertone in it that some people will mistake as geared only for total selfishness, but that's just the wittiness of it. That's just his humor, and his, maybe there's also a social criticism in it, in this wittiness and this sarcasm. So I think it is, because when I saw his interviews, I see what I see in him is a very humble and a very kind person. So I think he's a very kind and gentle person. And that's my impression that I get. He reminds me a lot of my friend Birgit, who I loved so much. Birgit is no longer here. Reminds me very much of Birgie. Very gentle, very kind, very social, in a kind way, very supportive of everything that is good and that has potential. So, and very intelligent, but he's a winner kind of person. He's someone who just keeps looking and searching, while my friend Birgie wanted someone to help her, and that is how most people seem to be. And I noticed it seems like most humans are that way. Women will admit to that freely, while men will usually not admit to that, because they feel like then they would be stigmatized as would be seen as wimpy by society, because this sexism is still quite represented in our society. So to a very large degree, very high percentage, I would say 80% of people are still very sexist. So it's very difficult for them to move out of that realm. And that has to do with emotional issues, with emotional pain. Women and men alike do. Lots of sexist women who go against their own gender. And it's because they have been drilled this way, they have been unempowered, they feel like they need to hold the other cheek, and they think that is somehow equated with being female. And it's very sad, because it completely undermines their potential to unfold themselves fully in their lives. And they cripple themselves that way. And people cripple themselves with religion, and religion is always this basso continuo that runs through society worldwide. And a very strong unempowerment factor for people is religiosity, and I talk about this in all of my videos because it is so important that people become aware of this. So I am extremely thrilled that I found Robert Greene's books. When I first heard about it several years ago, my friend Rita told me about Robert Greene and the title 48 Laws to Power. I said to Rita, I was kind of disgusted about that title, and I said to her, I don't want power. Why should I have power? I don't want power over people. It's bullshit. Why should I? It's complete. What do I get from that? It's like, why do I, it's this power. Everyone is like power over someone else. I find that pathetic, actually. People wanting power over someone else. It's like I snub my nose on it. It has a bad smell. So, but Friedrich Nietzsche was already complaining about that. But I see so much now, today, I see why people want this power. Because they feel utterly unempowered. They feel so, and then they think, they come to this conclusion that the only remedy will be to empower themselves in terms of powering themselves over others, in terms of suppressing others, and in terms of being in control of others. And this is where the mistake comes in. This is how we continue and perpetuate that old suppression and childhood trauma cycle that has been going on for so many millennia already. So Jiddu Krishnamurti said we can instantly dissolve it. It only takes a second. But it would require that people will be they have to be willing to look at themselves. They have to be willing to step back out of that chaotic chaos that they are immersed in and look at it from a couple of feet away at least, and look at what's happening, what am I doing, why am I doing this, why am I involved with this, why am I involved with these people, what do these people want from me, what do they want from each other, what do they expect from themselves. Is this healthy where they're going? Is this going to be productive? Is this going to be wholesome? Those are the questions to ask. Yeah, and that's why I recommend to people to read the books by Robert Greene. Get every one of his books. I'm not going to get paid for this commercial here. I just strongly believe that it's so crystal clear what he's talking about, and it is brought to you with so much ease and so much playfulness and gentleness and non-judgmentalness. There is a bit of a cynicism in it, but it is easy, it is playful. Yeah, it's more clownish a little bit, and it's easier. It's not like me, my type of cynicism. It's not Friedrich Nietzsche, who, of course, he was hated. Of course, he exhausted people, because he constantly found fault with everyone. He found fault with entire humanity. He said the human is a dangerous regression, a treading on the spot, a hybrid between animal and superhuman. The only good thing about humans is what Friedrich Nietzsche said, is that they are their own demise. So they will bring themselves to their own demise by being that stagnated and by stepping on themselves during their own lack of insights, regressiveness, fear, greed, need for power, need to control others, and so on. So, but that message is very negative. I mean, it's not. He wants people to look at it, but he does it in the wrong way. And that's what I'm realizing right now when I listen to this audiobook. It's very, very it's very refreshing. It brings up something in me, and I was falling back into earlier. I was starting to fall back into this old pattern of thinking, into this emotional, it comes from the feeling of having been victimized, and I know that almost all people have this feeling of being victimized. And what happens with me is I start to have negative thoughts of other people and see their patterns in a negative way. But then I forget in that moment that they are victims. So, and then I remind myself, some nerve cells go, wait a minute, Robert Greene, what did he say? Robert Greene says that they are all victims. I mean, not directly, but indirectly. They're all victims. They all have been also unempowered. Now they think they need to suppress themselves and others. They need to control. They need to live in denial. They need to be in greed. different act outs, but always driven by this feeling of incompleteness and feeling unempowered and feeling victimized. So, and out of that arise so many different act outs that are not beneficial for us, that will not move us in the right direction. And so what I realize right now is that I need to always see this now. I need to always understand this is where people are coming from. And the more I will practice, the more I practice it, the better it will become. The better I will become in my skills of communicating with other people. So they have been very bad in the past, although in between it was good when I felt people were on my side, but then as soon as I felt like there is someone who is extremely rigid-minded and his ego comes out against me, then my ego will come out, and then I will judge, and do this Friedrich Nietzsche judgment, like this super hammer on society, and like I judged you all or something, and then it's also a knee-jerk reaction, it comes out of the feeling of being victimized, of course. So once we can leap out of that cycle, out of this continuous cycle of judgment and trying to put our nose above water, sometimes on cost of others, or seeing others as danger. This is where the danger itself is. When we see others as danger, as a danger factor, we completely, I don't like the word dehumanizing, because we're all animals. So when we see others as danger, and some people see animals as danger, some people see a lion as a danger. When we see another living being as a danger, some people see a rat as a danger to their house. So then what happens in that moment is a very horrible thing. Is the mirror neuron, the compassion center, the amygdala, the sense of connection becomes fragmented, and the person sees the other as a threat and feels no longer connected, there is no longer an identification happening, or a sympathy, or a friendship, and this is very, 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 very dangerous, and that's what humans do to animals. They objectify them, they make him into criminals, they see him as criminals, they see him as antagonists, they want to see him as antagonists, some of them, it's a very complicated, tight-knit cycle of denial and convenience and greed, that's all woven into this, and that all has to be unraveled. Every knot of that has to be unraveled, and the string has to be loosened up and freed and made flat and free and straight again. And so then we have to look at the big picture, and then we'll see all the beings, the rats. Some of them are indoor rock climbers who are gnawing away at your structure. It's not their fault, okay? They just want to live. They need to get out of the weather. They need to eat. They need to have themselves a nest and so on. They don't know that this is a structure that could fall down. They cannot think that far. They have never been taught this. And I don't think they would understand it if you did teach it to them. So even if they could learn the language, so they cannot. There's a limited cognitive ability, and their cognitive abilities are geared towards survival, hardcore survival on an everyday basis. And so we have to see that in that sense, we're in the same boat with them. Okay, we all want to live, we all want to survive. If you don't want your house to crumble, then don't build your house with wood. Now comes, I mean, this is just one out of gazillions of examples, how these things tie in with each other. So people build out of wood because their church told them to get this wood from old growth forests that are completely at risk. But the church will do the opposite, always do the opposite of what conservationism does, and always the opposite of environmentalism. And because the church has been hijacked by the corporate agenda, of course, so then they will tell people, you have to do this. I'm sure that people 400 years ago, they didn't have the logging industry agenda yet that was making deals and pacts with the clergy and so on. Not to that extreme, not with these individual subjects that we have today, like logging and fishing and so on. So they had different things going on. Back then there was the trees, the forest were not at risk yet. Today they are. Because you log long enough, eventually the trees are gone. They aren't endless. Would be nice if they were endless, as they lie to their own followers, always saying endless. It's not endless. I mean, if we terraform Mars, then we can renew and regrow the environment there. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of steps. Elon Musk wants to do it. There again, Elon Musk, people don't like him because, again, the corporate agenda talks against him, goes against him. See how this always ties in with one another? All of these things, they loop. It's like a knitted sweater, loops of connections and interconnections and side connections and under connections and over connections, of corruption, agenda, the results of that with another loop, results of that with another loop. Why don't we unravel this now and undo all of these loops and knots? And then we see we're all connected, interconnected. We cannot possibly continue to spray more pesticides. It won't work. So all of this ties in with one another. And I've seen this a long time. What I see now through Robert Greene, he's opening my eyes in that way, and maybe more my understanding, my deeper understanding that everyone comes from this unempowerment, every single person, and then come and they fall prey to their religion and their peer group. The peer group fell prey to the corporate agenda. The corporate agenda fell prey to its own greed and to the need to impress this or that woman or that society, for the need to become more powerful politically and so on. So so a lot of people think that Robert Greene's books are just serving those, the corporate people and the ones who want to have political power. But I see it completely differently now. So I see now that with these books that are there for everyone, everyone can use this now for their own advantage. The animal rights people can use it, the environmentalists can use it, the humanitarian people can use it, the human rights people can use it. Yeah, and also the ones who want to have influence coming from the neurotic point of view, like the religions and the corporate agenda, and the politicians who are only interested in enriching themselves, the ones with the conflict of interest. We all can get something from these books, but and he's not there to show us, to teach us about morals or ethics. That is left for other people to do. That's left to Jiddu Krishnamurti. That is left to Dr. Alan W. Anderson, Dr. David Bohm, Dr. Shainberg, and to many other people, Ingrid Newkirk, Dr. Peter Singer, lots of ethical people that will teach us about ethics. Very, very, very important. But what Robert Greene does is also very important, because he teaches us about our own psychology and about the very simple mechanisms that are biological and that lead us astray a lot. And so once we understand all of this, that's why it's very important. Read Robert Greene, read Jiddu Krishnamurti and Dr. Peter Singer. Inform yourself about it and find yourselves and unravel the knots. Say no to corruption, which is say no to religion. Religion is corruption. It leads you to ruin. It leads entire societies into a ruin and into denial and into a ruin on all levels, economic, socially, psychologically. So unravel the knots, get out of that, and get into true love, true caring, and true ethics. Take care. Bye-bye.